This is an ad by BetterHelp. Let's talk numbers. Traditional in-person therapy can cost anywhere from $100 to $250 per session, and that adds up fast. But with BetterHelp Online Therapy, you can save up to 50% per session and pay a flat fee for weekly sessions, making therapy more affordable and easier to fit into your life. Therapy should feel accessible, not like a luxury. BetterHelp connects you with licensed professionals who can help with everything from anxiety to everyday stress at a price that makes sense. Your mental health is worth it, and now it's within reach. With over 30,000 therapists and 5 million people served globally, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform. It's convenient, flexible, and you can switch therapists anytime. Your well-being is worth it. Visit BetterHelp.com to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
Leading Britain's conversation, LBC, with James O'Brien.
11:50 is the time. Simon Marks is just waiting in the wings. Before that, listen to this.
President Zelensky's about his offer to purchase more Patriot missile batteries.
Oh, I don't know. He's always looking to purchase missiles. You know, he's against. Listen, when you start a war, you got to know that you can win the war, right? You don't start a war against somebody that's 20 times your size and then hope that people give you some missiles.
So Ukraine started the war by very foolishly getting invaded by Russia. Amazing logic. And it's not funny, of course. Dan Snow, the history guy, has pointed out that in Hitler's last will and testament, dictated hours before he committed suicide 80 years ago in April 1945, Hitler insisted that no one had wanted war in 1939. It had been forced on him by international Jewry and its helpers. I've done it before, and I will almost certainly be doing it again, but on the days when it feels a little bit like things are slipping away because so much is happening, we page Simon Marks, LBC's Washington editor, and here he is. That's one bit, the Zelensky bit. I think that the Harvard bit is relevant, and the El Salvador bit looks like today's top three, Simon, but I've probably missed 10.
Yeah, well, there's always more. But look, I think that those comments yesterday in the Oval Office, and it's the second time at least that Donald Trump has publicly claimed that Ukraine started the war, and yesterday going further and saying, oh, well, Zelensky just always wants more missiles, always looking to buy more arms. I mean, it's the latest demonstration of the fact that he is continuing to try and tilt the outcome of peace negotiations in Russia's favor. His special envoy, Steve Witkoff, was welcomed to the Kremlin a couple of days back, absolutely with open arms by Vladimir Putin. Republicans on Capitol Hill yesterday, some of them, reacted to those comments by Donald Trump and got in touch with the White House to say, look, I mean, we are still, many of us, supportive of Ukraine and its war aims, but they are not in the driving seat of any negotiations that are going to take place. There have been moments when Donald Trump has expressed frustration over what he has argued have been attempts by Vladimir Putin to kind of run out the clock on this discussion about advancing a peace agreement. But, you know, those comments yesterday, like so many of the other things that the president says on so many different issues, were just laced with disdain and loathing towards, arguably, the bravest, most courageous European leader the continent has seen since Winston Churchill. And it is absolutely apparent that he is going to cut the legs out from underneath Volodymyr Zelensky and from the Ukrainian people at every possible turn, still fuming over the fact that the Ukrainians haven't agreed to hand over 50% of their valuable rare earth minerals to the United States for decades to come, to repay America for what he insists has been $350 billion, sometimes it's $500 billion, depending on what day of the week it is, in his telling of US aid to Ukraine. So further evidence that he's absolutely still tilting everything in Vladimir Putin's favor.
And no pushback in the room. We've circled around this subject for a while now, but it's going to get worse, not better, because you would expect a journalist to say, hang on a minute, Mr. President, are you suggesting that Ukraine started the war by getting invaded?
Yeah, no pushback in the room. I mean, let's be clear. The White House is defying now a court order that requires it to restore the Associated Press, the news agency, highly respected, to the White House reporting pool. And again, I've got to caution listeners that when you see these interactions now in the Oval Office and you hear that a reporter asked the president a question, invariably the men and women asking the questions are not reporters. They are polemicists working for propaganda outlets owned and operated by Donald Trump's wealthy supporters and political friends. And so the entire pattern of conversation within those White House encounters has substantially shifted in the last few weeks in the direction of right-leaning news organizations that are now invariably front and center. Even over the weekend, an interaction with Brian Glenn, a propagandist from Real America's Voice, who is the partner of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, the conspiracy theory believing representative from Georgia, in which Brian Glenn was literally blowing smoke at the president over the outcome of his routine physical over the weekend. And the two of them were it was locker room talk between the two of them about the physical prowess and stamina of the president of the United States. It is rare now to see any kind of meaningful interaction in those encounters.
And we're only 100 days in. I hope the audio quality here is good enough. This is an exchange between Trump and the president of El Salvador, which was recorded almost by accident. Someone spotted it on the feed as they made their way into the room.
Homegrowns are next. The homegrowns. You got to build about 5 more places. Yeah, that's big. All right? It's not big enough.
That's Trump describing how he wants to deport homegrowns to El Salvador next, and that the president there, Bukele, would have to build 5 more places. I mentioned Rolling Stone earlier as an antidote to the pseudo-journalism you just described, Simon, and they ran with the headline, Trump and Bukele bond over human rights abuses in Oval Office meeting. And I don't know whether the laughter in the background is more chilling than the words.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the most shameful Oval Office encounters that I can remember. I mean, it's hard in the modern era to imagine anything more shameful than what took place there yesterday, because Bukele, of course, is the El Salvadorian dictator, elected to power, but absolutely on the same kind of populist ticket that Donald Trump has espoused, who is now acting as Donald Trump's private jailer. So you've seen hundreds of people, detainees, mostly Venezuelans, wind up in a terrorist detention facility in El Salvador, again in defiance of court orders, the checks and balances in the United States falling away by the day. And in that interaction yesterday, the president was essentially saying to Nayib Bukele, build another 5 prisons, because what he is thinking about doing is denaturalizing American citizens, stripping even American citizens who are convicted of crimes of their passports, of their citizenship, and sending them to El Salvador's gulag. This is now a theory that the White House is investigating and advancing. Rolling Stone, that you mentioned, reported on it just a few days ago. We've heard the Deputy White House Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, advancing that there is a legal path for them to strip Americans of their citizenship. And at a time when they're saying to places like Harvard University, they want to come in and they want to audit the staff for the viewpoints of the faculty, the student body. They want to reduce the power of students, faculty and administrators. That's why they're withholding more than $1 billion in aid to Harvard University. They are threatening to go after people who don't support Donald Trump, who don't openly espouse admiration for what he's doing, and potentially even strip them of their citizenship and send them into El Salvador's gulag. It is an astonishing place for the United States to have reached.
And as you have reminded us many times, it's only one of the stories worthy of those superlatives, if that's quite the right word, but that incredibly powerful language. Simon Marks, I know you've got another appointment imminently, so I shall thank you now for that and remind you listening that not only that, of course, he released and pardoned all of the people who were attacking police on January the 6th, but also that it's not about law and order. Fascism always claims to be about law and order, but as Simon just reminded you, the same people will be making up the laws. The people that hid Anne Frank's family were breaking the law, and the people that betrayed them to the authorities were following the law. And it's not by accident that Simon uses words like gulags, but, hey-ho, I can't remember what it is that you're celebrating. Is it still owning the libs? I forget. Is it what? I don't know, but, well done. It's 12 noon.